You've seen Ashton Hall putting his head inside a bowl full of cucumbers and ice cubes, Brian Johnson standing in front of high-tech light machines, and Alex Hormozi telling you to just wake up and start grinding. But the truth is that 90% of what's trending now either doesn't move the needle or just simply destroys your productivity. I've tested everything from monk-style silence to dopamine stacking to waking up at 5 a.m. And after personally working with hundreds of high-performing entrepreneurs to help them optimize their mental performance, I built a morning routine tire list to help you stop guessing and structure a morning routine that actually enhances your focus, energy, and work output. Most morning routine videos are made from influencers who don't actually need to perform at a high level, but instead to just get likes and attention. I built this tire list by working directly with 7, 8, and even 9-figure entrepreneurs running real businesses, not influencers trying to look cool. So in this video, we're gonna break down every single major habit you see people doing nowadays to see what actually works, so you can get more done by noon than what most people do in a week. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly which habits to keep, which ones to avoid doing, and how to build a morning routine that makes you sharper, more focused, and more productive. Let's start with one of the most controversial habits that everyone is trying to get you to do: cold showers. Huberman and a lot of other health influencers have been talking about it. But does it actually make your brain work better? Or are you just shocking yourself awake and calling it productivity? The truth is that cold showers will increase your dopamine levels by 200%, which will improve your mood and make you feel more motivated. Also, they train your nervous system for stress resilience. Because every time you step into that cold water, you're choosing controlled discomfort, and that has a ripple effect which makes you feel more calm under situations of high stress in your everyday life. And finally, cold showers sometimes give you a positive domino effect. You step out of a cold shower and your brain's like, if I can handle that, I can handle anything, which is a great way to start your day in forward motion. But the problem is that cold showers are not for everyone. And even worse, most people are using them incorrectly, which makes them think that they're doing something productive, but in reality, they're harming their health and productivity. You see, cold is a stressor. And if you're already stressed or anxious, this just pours gasoline on the fire. It sends your body deeper into that fight or flight state, which means worse sleep, less focus, and less productivity. Also, cold shower blunts inflammation, which sounds great until you realize that inflammation is required for muscle growth and recovery. So if you're lifting weights and you're trying to grow, your body needs that inflammatory signal to rebuild so that your muscles can get stronger and repair themselves. But when you jump in a cold shower after, it's like going to the gym, crushing a session, and then hitting undo. So for that reason, we place cold showers into B-tire. But this next habit is probably even more controversial than the cold showers, and you've probably seen it everywhere. But the problem is that most people get this habit completely wrong. They turn it into a vibe instead of actually using it to change how their brain works. But when you do it properly, it upgrades your focus in a way no supplement, ice bath, or productivity app can. I'm talking about something called mindfulness meditation, but not the way you've seen it on Instagram. This isn't about being zen, emptying your mind, or simply sitting perfectly still with your eyes closed for 20 minutes. This is about training your attention span. Every time your mind drifts and you pull it back to the focus point, to the breath, you're strengthening your prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for deep work, impulse control, and focus. It's like mental weightlifting. Every distraction is a rep for your prefrontal cortex. And when you do it consistently for even 10 minutes a day, you stop getting pulled into random distractions, you stop reacting emotionally to stress, you start choosing what to focus on and staying locked in for hours. And that's exactly why Navy SEALs and elite founders do it, and that's also why meditation is A-tire. This next habit is something that 80% of the world's population does daily. Billion-dollar companies and elites have brainwashed almost everyone on this planet into doing this energy-draining habit every single day. And chances are, you're probably guilty of this addictive habit too. What I'm talking about is the world's best-selling drug, coffee. Now, before you freak out, I'm not saying that coffee is evil, but the reason coffee is C-tire is because almost everyone uses it in the worst way possible. You see, when you first wake up, your body naturally spikes a hormone called cortisol, which is designed to help you feel alert. But when you dump coffee in your system on top of that, you're basically hijacking your nervous system. It gives you a fake spike of energy, but after it goes away, you crash hard. This is the exact reason why by 1 p.m. you feel tired, anxious, scattered, and need another cup to just survive the afternoon. Even worse, caffeine doesn't actually give you energy, but it blocks adenosine, the chemical that builds up in your brain and actually makes you feel tired. So if you're already stressed out, underslept, or dehydrated, coffee doesn't fix that, but it just masks it, which means you're stacking caffeine caffeine on an already broken engine and wondering why you feel like trash by noon. Now, to drink coffee properly, delay it 90 minutes after waking, get exposed to sunlight and do some exercise first, hydrate properly with this formula, and just drink it 1 to 3 days per week max, only on mentally demanding days. That's how you use caffeine as a tool instead of being addicted to it to just function and exist. But this next habit, it's been marketed as a silver bullet for fat loss, mental clarity, anti-aging, and pretty much every health benefit under the sun. But the truth is that most people aren't doing it for the right reason. And when you apply it strategically, it can actually become a focus weapon. It's something that elite performers have been using for years to sharpen their mental edge, stabilize their energy, and to actually feel clearer during the hardest part of the day. And the crazy part, it works by doing nothing. I'm talking about fasting, specifically skipping breakfast or pushing your first meal into later in the day. Now look, fasting gets hyped online as a magic trick for six-pack abs and anti-aging. But here's what it actually does in simple terms. When you fast, your body switches into a state that increases dopamine and norepinephrine, brain chemicals that make you feel focused, alert, and clear. You also avoid a big spike in blood sugar, which means your energy stays consistent instead of bouncing all over the place. So you're not digesting, you're not crashing, you're just focused. That's why founders, writers, and athletes love it, because it buys you a few hours of pure output mode. But here's what almost no one tells you. It's not all sunshine and biohacking, because fasting is still a stressor. And if your nervous system is already maxed out, well, you're just adding gasoline to a nervous system that is already on fire. You see, if you're waking up and you're already stressed, your body's probably producing elevated cortisol. That's your fight or flight hormone. It's fine in small doses, but if you stack fasting on top of high cortisol, underslept nights, and bad nutrition, your body doesn't think you're optimizing, it thinks that you're starving. Your cortisol stays elevated all day, your heart rate variability tanks, your sleep quality drops, your recovery sucks, and ironically, you perform worse and worse over time. So now you're walking around thinking that you're disciplined, but your body is just in a chronic, low-grade panic mode. And you may feel more energy and alertness because your body is simply running on survival chemicals. That's why fasting is B-tier. It can sharpen your brain and stabilize your energy, but if your baseline is already poor, it just makes it worse. Now, this next one is probably the closest thing that we have to a daily mental reset button. It's not a trend, gadget, or a supplement, but almost every high performer I've worked with swears by it. And what's crazy is that this one habit increases dopamine, focus, motivation, even memory and emotional regulation. And the best part, it forces you into discomfort first thing, so that naturally the rest of your day feels effortless. Most people think this habit is about discipline, but it actually rewires your brain to perform better. I'm talking about morning training, lifting, cardio, or any kind of movement that actually pushes you. Not just for aesthetics, not to check the box, but to flip your neurochemistry into focus mode before the workday even starts. What happens when you train first thing is that you spike your dopamine levels, which increases your motivation, drive, and leads to sustained output. You spike your norepinephrine levels, which enhances your alertness and clarity. You boost something called BDNF, or otherwise known as brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which literally grows new neurons and enhances learning. And you regulate your nervous system, meaning lower stress, better HRV, and more control over your emotions. It's actually not a workout, but a biological primer that reprograms your focus for the entire day. And by doing it consistently, you become someone who can handle pressure and stay calm under chaos. That's why morning training is S tier. Not just because it gives you energy, but because it builds the mental engine to actually use that energy. Now, this next one looks impressive. You've probably seen billionaires, biohackers, and influencers standing in front of red glowing panels saying it optimizes mitochondria or rejuvenates the body. And yeah, the tech is cool, but when it comes to actual mental performance and focus, most people are wasting their time, money, and attention thinking they're doing something powerful, when in reality it's just well-branded light bulbs. I'm talking about red light therapy. The deal is that it has legit science behind it for cellular health, skin rejuvenation, and even recovery. But none of that makes a difference in your focus, productivity, or brain performance unless you're doing the basics right. Most people do this expecting that it's gonna give them an edge, but they're still not sleeping, moving, or eating right. And so what happens is they shine a $4,000 light in their face, feel good for 10 minutes, and then crash in the middle of the day because their body's real systems are broken. Red light therapy is D-tier because it's a distraction. It feels productive, but it's not a needle mover. Now, what if I told you that there's a free version of red light therapy that actually works way better for your brain? A tool that resets your focus, sleep, and mental energy, but for free. Most people overlook it, but it might be the single most powerful thing you can do in the first 30 minutes of your day. What I'm talking about is early morning sunlight exposure. When you get sunlight in your eyes, not not through a window, but direct light, within the first 30 minutes of waking, you activate something called your suprachiasmatic nucleus. That's the control center of your circadian rhythm, the internal clock that tells your brain and body when to be alert, when to be focused, and when to rest. If that clock is off, everything else in your body, hormones, focus, sleep, recovery, is also off. But when you view sunlight first thing in the morning, you're sending your brain a clear signal that it's daytime and it's time to lock in. And that triggers a chain reaction. First of all, you spike cortisol at the right time, and this improves your energy, mental clarity, and ability to focus for hours. You increase dopamine production, which boosts motivation and reduces distractions, and you also lock in your melatonin production for later, meaning you'll fall asleep faster and recover better that night. So you're not just improving the first hour of the day, you're actually improving the next 16 hours and also your next night of sleep as well. That's why morning sunlight exposure is S tier. Now this last one might be one of the most common traps entrepreneurs fall into. You wake up, you skip the routine, you sit down and start working right away. And honestly, if you're still in the building phase, that might actually be the most productive thing you can do. You don't need a fancy routine, you just need output. But for the entrepreneurs building real businesses, managing teams, solving complex problems, taking important decisions, or needing to think creatively and clearly, this approach breaks your brain. If your work involves critical thinking, problem solving, decision making, or strategy, skipping the morning ramp up hurts you more than it helps you. You see, when you first wake up, your brain is still in a transitional state. Your default mode network, which is the background brain network that handles self-reflection, emotional processing, and mental noise, is still active. That's the stuff that makes your thoughts scattered, unfocused, and reactive. Your prefrontal cortex, on the other hand, the part responsible for focus, planning, deep thinking, and high-quality decision-making, hasn't ramped up yet. And if you jump into Slack, email, or problem-solving before that system is online, you're asking your brain to perform without warming up, and it's like you're literally operating on mental fumes. Even worse, if you haven't moved your body, gotten sunlight, or regulated your nervous system yet, you're still in a sympathetic state. Low HRV, high stress baseline, and no buffer between you and external chaos. So instead of showing up like a founder, you show up like a firefighter. You're reactive, you're task switching, you're jumping into the day with no intention, just momentum. And that momentum usually leads to scattered output, shallow work, decision fatigue by 11 a.m., brain fog, and lower quality thinking across the board. Now again, if you're in grind season and you're just trying to build the habit of working, waking up and just working is way better than just laying in bed watching motivational reels. But if you're doing deep work, creative thinking, strategy, or leading your team, you need to show up calibrated and optimized, not just caffeinated and chaotic. That's why just working after waking up lands in be tired. But if you truly want to maximize your potential and be able to get more done in less time so that you can scale your business without ever burning out, then morning routines are just one piece of the puzzle. Because to actually operate at your highest level, you also need to look into your diet, training, sleep, daily structure, and energy management as one complete system. And there's a specific protocol I've used with hundreds of high-performing entrepreneurs to do exactly that. A protocol designed to help you eliminate brain fog forever, stay locked in deep work for hours, and make more money while working less. If you want to see how it works, watch this video on the screen right now, where I'll walk you through the exact system I use to unlock peak mental performance step by step.